a result of really the Biden administration not having a plan and not having a strategy in place. They knew this day was coming, but they don't have a plan to actually deter the illegal behavior that we're seeing along the border.
Secretary, welcome back to Centerpoint. Great to have you with us.
Well, thanks for having me.
To make it very simple for people at home who are hearing so much about Title 42, what exactly is it and why is it so important to securing our southern border?
Yeah, it's such a great question. Title 42 is a public health order that was put in place at the beginning of COVID-19 back in 2020. And it allows the Border Patrol to expel those who cross the border illegally within a matter of minutes and perhaps an hour or so. And that's vastly different than what they would normally have to do, which is to bring them inside their Border Patrol facilities, process them, and then release them or remove them. And so the idea was during that public health emergency, you don't want them in closed facilities where that virus could spread, and so that you would then expel them or remove them back to Mexico very quickly. That's been in place now for some time. But as as COVID starts to diminish, the ability to use that authority starts to diminish as well. And so it's a result of really the Biden administration not having a plan and not having a strategy in place. They knew this day was coming, but they don't have a plan to actually deter the illegal behavior that we're seeing along the border.
Why? I know you said the Biden administration does not have a plan. That seems pretty clear. But why would they allow what seems to be a very common sense law to expire at a time when we have a massive crisis at the U.S.-Mexico border?
Well, it's, again, another great question. The courts are pushing them to dismantle Title 42, but they've said on their own, even if they didn't have a court telling them to do so, that they are not a fan of Title 42. Look, Title 42 is always going to end. It's always been a temporary measure. The catastrophe that we are going to see on the border is not directly as a result of Title 42 being taken away, but I should say it's a larger issue that we've seen over the last 23 months of this administration. If you recall, on day one and week one of this of their time in office, they stopped border wall construction. They canceled the Remain in Mexico program. They canceled the asylum cooperative agreements. They gave out policy direction to ICE officers not to deport, not to remove individuals. So the real issue here is this ongoing detrimental policy agenda that the Biden administration has employed over the last 23 months that is fueling the crisis that we see and is really contributing to everything that's going wrong on the border. They need to bring some deterrent back into the system. They need to hold individuals who cross that border illegal accountable. And they need to remove them in short order back to their home countries if they don't qualify for asylum. Now, what I just said is difficult to do. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of leadership and a lot of will. But over the last 23 months, we haven't seen any of that from this administration. They haven't instituted one new policy or one new program along that border, despite being in the middle of the worst border crisis that this country has ever seen.
Yeah, border towns in places like Arizona and Texas obviously will bear the brunt, the aftershocks of the expiration of Title 42. But I found it very interesting just today, New York City Mayor Erick Adams was saying, hey, we're going to have a big problem here in New York City. It seems, Secretary, this problem is not limited to just border towns. This is going to spread nationwide.
Well, it certainly already has. And what we say is every city and every community in the country is a border town and a border community. And we say that because what is smuggled and trafficked across that border does not stay in South Texas, does not stay along the Arizona or California border. Instead, it goes to every community and every town in the country, whether we're talking about the number of individuals trafficked or we talk about the illegal narcotics. And so every community is affected by this. I think it's interesting you now have the mayor of New York City saying, hey, this is a problem that the federal government needs to solve. I could not agree more with him. We have been begging the federal government and the Biden administration to solve this crisis for the last 23 months, and they have failed and chosen not to. But he's also asking for federal resources, basically saying New York can't absorb this any longer and that he needs federal dollars to help him. Well, what I would tell him is get in line because the cities and communities and towns along that border have not just experienced 3 to 4, maybe 5,000 like New York City has. They experienced that in one day almost. And so if anyone needs help, it's certainly some of those communities along that border that have been in this crisis every single day and really see no end in sight, which is why you have the mayor of El Paso here in the last 24 to 48 hours declare a state of emergency. He can no longer ignore the reality in front of what he sees in his community. It is under siege, and they have to take some action down there.
Yeah, El Paso completely inundated. We can prepare for more of an onslaught. That seems pretty obvious, right?
That's right. You can see the numbers continue to increase because basically the traffickers and the cartels are able to push more and more individuals across that border with no one stopping them. And that's good for their business. And as long as they make money, they're going to continue along this route.